Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Also, good morning. It is like 7 o'clock heading into work. I usually get into work around like 7:30. Or have to be at work at 7:30. Early bird gets the worm, as the old saying goes. But while I'm driving to work, I figured just to do another video, something short and sweet, regarding to a topic that we've kind of discussed before. And oddly enough, I was trying to record this video. Sorry, my voice is a little still waking up. Yesterday I tried to record this video and just all sorts of things, all sorts of distractions, so just couldn't get the video done. So now we're in the morning, peaceful, very nice and quiet. So I figured just to discuss another topic for today. And this one revolves around film censorship. Now, we've kind of discussed this before in the guise of film ratings, which kind of goes hand in hand in our discussion of film censorship. We've talked more about just the blatant, just about the literal ratings, what they mean, and how the system itself isn't exactly, clean, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's not very well refined. There's some things that need to be reevaluated, specifically with just like little details, like certain things I feel don't need to be rated as highly, and then other things, just perhaps lend itself to a higher rating. It's just, stuff like that. And that came about with the whole Blonde discussion. That film Blonde with Ana de Armas, the Marilyn Monroe film, that was given an NC-17. And if you remember that film, there was nothing graphic to speak of in the actual film. There was discussions of graphic material, but there was no actual showing of graphic material, because disturbance and actually seeing something for yourself is two completely different things. And in the context of a rating, I felt that would lend itself to a lower rating, because ratings should reflect what's on screen, not what's being told to us. Because if that's the case, everything should be, there should be PG-13 and up, because of the subject matters that even kids' films, like Pixar films, wish to discuss. Like Zootopia should be a PG-13 film. That's a film about racism, about discrimination, about all that sort of stuff. Like social landscapes. That's, you know what I'm referring to. Themes don't reflect a film, or on a rating scale. It should be about what's literally shown. So now, what is being shown though is a different discussion. So to say that now that there is a film that is violent or that is graphic, and we've sort of touched on these ideas before, and graphicness does not necessarily mean violence. That could mean in any other scenario. That can be in a discussion of, like, again, cinematic language, but film, what can be shown. That graphicness can be equated to anything. That could be equated to violence. That could be equated to just activity. We've talked a lot about sexual content on this channel. Just recently on the News Roundup, we talked about a film study where there is less of that content in film, but there's more of a grotesque nature to when they are there. It's not tame. It's very, 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 expressive, we'll say. It's just sort of made me wonder, like, what is needed to be censored, and this is, in my opinion, like, just to get to it, like, my opinion about film censorship is ultimately this. It's a very subjective thing, and I think that goes without saying. Everything is subjective, but I think that more or less film censorship is a very subjective thing, because it all comes down to basically what you believe is violent, what you believe is too much, and in my book, there are things that are a bit much, we'll say. And that stuff I've discussed before. I don't think that there has to be a certain volume in sexual content, or just a certain presentation doesn't have to be there. Just generally speaking, with that form of content, I don't think it has to be there. But I wouldn't censor it though, because I'm also the guy who says that an artist should express themselves, should be able to say what they say, or at least, under a corporate regime, whatever their affiliations, or whatever what they're doing, either it's in-house with a big studio or outside on a smaller scale where they have more jurisdiction, whatever the case may be, whatever is agreed upon, essentially, that's what should be released. I want to see ultimately what is the director's film, or what is basically agreed upon, to be that vision, to be that version, that cut that gets put out there. And it happens to have graphic material, I should be allowed to comment on it, but that's it. I don't think that censoring it is an appropriate thing. That being said, though, there are topics that I don't particularly fancy. We discussed May, December, discussing an inappropriate relationship, which I get is meant to be somewhat strategical, meant to be a little bit of a satire. I don't understand how. At least that's what I heard based on what people have said. But it doesn't make it any less weird, or any less like it doesn't make it more sensible just because you use the guise of satire. Like I've said it before, it seems as though that when the extremes are presented, the excuse is comedy, and I don't find that to be much of an excuse. And I can get into a conversation about comedy in general, and we've discussed that too also on this channel, about Hollywood's humor and how it's not really funny. It's more gross and just weird, like certain things that they find funny. It's like I don't see that. I don't see what's so funny about that. But there's things that I personally don't like in terms of subject matter. Stuff like that, it goes without saying. I think that anyone can agree that topics about having sex with minors, or anything more extreme than that, I don't think is necessarily needed to discuss, because it's not things that I feel you can make a comment on, as much as you're just using it for a very odd purpose, kind of a morbid thing. It's not something to where I can go, oh yes, I could see where this is required. I could see why they need this sort of thing. It's just there for shock value. We've always have said that on this channel. It's always been about shock value, and there's nothing more to it than that. And I just don't find that appealing. But for me, topics like that, I think would be best left alone, I'll say. That's the closest I'll ever get to saying something should be censored, because that's just like stuff that people don't need to hear about. That's stuff that people don't necessarily need to discuss at length, or to twist the whole subject of it in general. I don't really think anybody needs that. Really, I don't think that that's something that needs to be discussed. Or other things like incest or stuff like that, just gross stuff that I don't think anybody, generally speaking, is desiring to watch. If you are, you're just odd. Very, very odd. Anybody with common sense knows that that's just wrong, inappropriate, and in turn, what I'm seeing is just that. There's nothing else to tell me about it. It's just wrong. It's inappropriate. And the sheer fact of me seeing it here on screen, there's no other way to define it. It's just wrong and inappropriate. So I would say that stuff like that is the closest to where I would say, yeah, that should be censored. Violence, is, another topic for another day. That's I would say that's more or less a metric, a level, depending on what we're showing. That really depends more on just on the volume of its violence, and really what is being shown. Um, but like I said, it's a very subjective thing. A lot of people have different views on it, and I can get into other things as well, but I won't. I mean, I think people, if you follow this channel for an extended period of time, you know what I mean when I say other things probably should be censored as well. I'm not going to get into it because that gets into a political conversation, and no. Especially YouTube. YouTube doesn't fancy certain views. We'll just say that. Talking about censorship. Which that's not censorship that's appropriate. That's just silencing my comments. That's just shutting me up, and that's not cool. But anyways, but there are definitely things out there that, depending on your view, it's just like with life in general. There's stuff that you just don't like to be. There's just things you don't want to be preview to. There's also things that, just by knowledge, just by common sense, is wrong. It's inappropriate. It's just gross. So why would you want to indulge? Why would you want to watch anything like that? Let alone have it be twisted for the sake of artistry. Like, it's just wrong. There's no other way to put it. It's just wrong. And I feel that, more than anything else, warrants censorship. Not saying that it should be censored, because again, I value the artist's voice. I want to see what they present. I don't wish for them to have barriers. I want them to be boundless. I want them to be able to say what they want to say, because I ultimately want to see the truth of what they're saying, or just literally what is, and then see what is, constructed, or what is being vocalized. Then if the difference in saying that, like being able to see the fakeness or the truth of your craftsmanship, the honesty of it, or the lies of which you're telling yourself. Kind of getting into more of a philosophical thing, but more or less, like I said, I desire to see the artist's voice fully, whether that being completely honest or truthful, or if that's being fake. I just want to hear them. I'd rather not them have barriers, or more or less an agreement upon by a studio or outside sources, whatever that may be, whatever is released, whatever is deemed releasable, by the studio, or just by you, if you have that sort of jurisdiction. I want to see that film. I don't want to see something that has to be careful. I want to see something of whatever you believe is your vision. So that's what I want to see. But that being said, when it is out, I'm allowed to make a comment on it. I'm allowed to say if it's gross. I'm allowed to say, yeah, I prefer not to preview myself to that. Like, I'm allowed to shut off the TV if I don't like it. That's why I shut off the TV in watching May December, because I found the subject matter to be kind of vile, to be kind of gross. So, like, that's just kind of how I want it to go. Like I'd rather be fair, but at the same time, I have my, just like anybody else, there are limits. There are things that I just don't like, and there are things that I just don't wish to see. But I'm not one to silence that voice before they speak. You know what I mean? Let them speak first, and then I can make a comment on it. That's kind of how I'm rolling with this. That's how my rationale with this is that I'm not one to silence your voice like YouTube. I'm one to let you talk, say what you got to say, and then I will give you my take on it, on what you're saying. Like, giving them their time, giving them their floor, But there definitely is things that I do not really fancy, but I'm not going to project or force that or make that just, oh, well, you know, like, I'll give it a chance, but if I don't like it, I don't like it. And I might think that it should be censored, but again, I value the artist's voice, and I want them to vocalize themselves first. Let them do their thing. Let me see what they gotta say. And if I don't like what they gotta say, I just turn off the TV, you know? So, but that's just where I'm coming from. I think that it's a very subjective thing. It's definitely a discussion to be had. And yeah, it's an interesting topic, but more or less just where I'm coming from. There are things that I would deem there are things that I would consider to be censored. There's definitely stuff in film that I would want censored, or I would move in that direction of wanting censored. But I always come back to the same point of, I would rather hear what the artist has to say first, and then make my judgment afterwards. So, but those are my thoughts, and yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. I'm gonna be heading into work now, and yeah. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. You guys let me know your thoughts on film censorship, a very interesting topic. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.